Hey, welcome to Occam's Razor. This is going to be a short one. Please like, share, subscribe, and let your friends know. Today was the day that I had to finish prepping the garden beds. Back in 2022, after I had been released from the Canadian Armed Forces for refusing to get injected with an experimental injection, which is now injured and unalived other members of Canadian Armed Forces, and they have been told that it's not work related, even though they had to take it to keep their jobs. But around that time, you have to remember that when I released, I was still a second class citizen. Even though I was a veteran of 38 years, having been on tour and served my country well, I was a second class citizen. I was not allowed to get on a train or a plane or leave the country or get on a ferry or provincially, I couldn't go into theaters, I couldn't go into restaurants, and the government already had RFIs in to build detention centers for those who refused the jibby jab. So things were not looking well. And I did not feel good having released at that time, obviously, because my government had decided to just dismiss me because I refused their experimental injection. That's fine. Do whatever you want. I did whatever I wanted. I put in a rather large garden. As soon as the snow thawed that year, because I didn't know what was going to happen, I had no idea if I'd even be allowed to go into grocery stores. We saw some people in some countries being denied complete social access if they didn't take this injection. And I just did not know how far these fascists would take these regulations. So I did everything I could. I put in a massive garden. I got myself into canning. This is my third year now, gardening and canning. So I'm very happy now. But the reason I'm mentioning this, right? The reason I put in this garden is because I could see how society was just breaking down. The liberals had done this on purpose. They put in this whole fear narrative in order to brainwash everybody and control them so that it could spend all kinds of money, which they did, by the way. What, close to 1.5 trillion dollars in debt Canada is now at, and our GST doesn't even cover the interest debt payments on all the debt that the liberals have accumulated for Canada, which is the debt that they accumulated is more than all the other debts of prior governments combined. And Canadians still think that the Liberals are a great choice for the next election. Well, I hope that if you choose the Liberals in next election, that you too have a garden ready and the ability to can food, because this PCO report that came out does not look good for the future of Canada. Let's see if I can bring this up here. There we go. Future Lives, Social Mobility in Question. Now, this is the Privy Council Office. They've released this report, and this report is from the Liberal government. Now, this is not an independent group. This is not some NGO. This is the government, and they are looking at where we've gone for the past 10 years and where we're headed if we continue with the same insane liberal policies. Future Lives, Social Mobility in Question. Social mobility lies at the heart of the Canadian project. Many people in Canada assume that following the rules and doing the right things will lead to a better life. However, things are changing. Wealth inequality is rising. It is already common for children to be less upwardly mobile than their parents. I know, I see it all the time. Down the street here, uh, the children that are playing in the neighborhood, I I really feel sorry for them. And I'm concerned as a neighbor because eventually, they're going to get desperate and they don't have anything to keep them occupied. Well, it's uh it's not going to be nice. It's not going to be nice at all. See if we can move this picture up here. There we go. Bring it back into the frame. It's already common. Yes, it is. So Policy Horizons report on Future Lives 2022 and Basic Needs at Risk 2023 explore these changes. Most recently, the disruptions on the Horizon 2024 reports suggest that in the coming years, downward social mobility might become the norm. What do you mean might become the norm? It's already become the norm. It's already been the norm since the COVIDity stupidity hit. Every single policy that they have put in has hindered the ability of Canadians to get ahead in life. And every policy they will bring in after this election, if they should form government, the Liberals will end up creating this scenario that we are reading here in this report. The Foresight Brief paints a picture of Canada in 2040 where upward social mobility is uncommon. That's right. Merit-based is gone. Diversity, equity, inclusion hires and promotes people based on making sure that they are more equal than others, eliminating merit. And this is what happens when you eliminate a merit-based society. In fact, anybody who's seen the movie Dr. Zhivago would understand this, or anybody who's looked at communism would understand that these trends that they are talking about here in this report is as a direct result of the Hegelian, deconstructionist, Marxist policies that this federal liberal government have brought in. However, many worry about sliding down the social order, which has become much more common. That's right. People can't get ahead. Their money doesn't go as far anymore because the economy has been destroyed by liberal half-wittery. Not only did they spend $1 trillion, they had to print most of it, which devalued our dollar. More of that, please, if you vote liberal. This scenario is neither the desired nor the preferred future. However, Policy Horizons research suggests that it is plausible and would create challenges across a range of policy areas. The economy may shrink or become more volatile. I think I saw that on one of my tours in Bosnia. Yes, mental health challenges could grow due to frustrated hopes and expectations. You think? How about all the mental health issues the Liberals created with their jibby-jab mandates that took away people's livelihoods? And then those that took it, many were injured, others were unalived. You don't think the mental stress of having to deal with those issues in your life when it comes to health, or people passing in your life because they thought we were doing the right thing. It's a good time to remember that the military still requires 3G jobs to get in. Workers and recent immigrants may choose to leave Canada for better opportunities elsewhere. Too late. We've already seen that a lot of people that came to Canada as immigrants looked at the scenario that was happening around them and said, this is insane. It's even worse than back home. And they left. And you got to remember, a lot of these migrants that came to Canada, the Liberals actively left the country to go find them, actively left the country to go find these people and say, come on in. We'll pay you for 2 years. We'll take care of you. And even with that, came here and looked around and said, holy poop, this place is full of poop. I'm going to back home where it's less poopy. People may turn into informal grassroots or community-based ways of fulfilling their basic needs. Oh, you mean like church-based charities that have mostly vanished or just ended up becoming industrialized organizations dependent on funding from the government? You know, it used to be in Canada and a lot of Western Christian nations, because they were built by Christians with those morals and ethics. Churches were well attended, and so was their community service. Churches many times offered and helped people. That's what they were there for. And then, of course, communities, organizations grew around that, and then municipal organizations tapped into that. But then over the years, especially since Trudeau Sr., Pierre Elliott Trudeau, came into power in the late 60s, his communist policies have slowly withered and done away with Christianity as a primary source of ethics and morals in Canada, which is why we have a government that acts unethically and immoral all the time. Christianity is lasting on their minds. And we know Jagmeet Singh doesn't support Christians because he's been asked repeatedly to condemn the church burnings since the fake graves fiasco, and crickets, nothing but crickets from him. So people may turn to informal grassroots. It's already happening. It's already happening, right? People are already organizing on their own. And I think the biggest grassroots problem you people have to worry about, when I say you people, I mean you people supporting the Liberals, is the fact that Alberta is going to leave. Alberta's going to lead Canada if you guys vote in a Liberal government. And so that's probably the biggest grassroots thing you got going on in Canada that you need to be worried about, let alone the fact that, Quebec has had their grassroots separatist movement um, much longer than that, since 1977. So, better uniform foxtrot yourselves, as they say. The post-secondary education sector may become a stranded asset. Well, we've seen what they've done in the States, and obviously Trump has his own agenda, which to me seems like getting rid of tariffs, getting rid of subsidies, that entire merry-go-round of money manipulation to decide who gets to run an industry and who doesn't. Along those lines, they've also stopped funding, sending a lot of money to universities. You know what they say about, what is the opposite of diversity? University. No, it's not. They're both pretty well screwed. Universities have turned into woke institutions that put ideology before science. I mean, really, if you're going to go to university and you're going to put yourself in debt to have to pay off that student debt, by the way, which is probably more than what I had to pay for my first and second house, separately, of course, before the housing market went stupid. But really, why would you want to indebt yourself unless you're going to become a scientist, an engineer, a doctor, maybe even a lawyer? But really, unless of course you can afford to go in and study philosophy and history, those are important as well. But the rest of these courses at university, really, what function do they have in society other than to produce pieces of paper for people to hand it over and say, I'm more educated. I like a little of those more educated officers in Canadian Armed Forces, and most of them didn't, lead scout troop at Dairy Queen. They have no leadership skills because they've never worked with their hands, because they've never done any labor in their lives. I think it's a really good idea for people to get a couple years of college under their belt, maybe get a trade, and then aspire to a higher learning. Unless you come from a rich family, you don't have to worry about working. But seriously, what is a university education going to give you other than having to pay back a debt? It might give you a slightly higher paying job than the other guy who's not paying off a massive student debt. That's probably it. So post-secondary education sector may become a stranded asset. Well, when people are just living on subsistence, why? Why would they bother to get a higher education when it's just going to give them more misery down the road? Again, unless you can just afford it, you're rich folks. But really, it's all just been a government-run scam to hire all these people. Remember, if these institutions were really successful, they would be able to fund themselves. People may reject the systems they believe have failed them. Oh, you mean like the fascist medical mandates regarding the jibby jab that coerced everybody to take it or turn them into second-class citizens? That kind of system? The system that you co-opted and then instructed banks, who apparently some happily froze bank accounts, and they actually did it during this election, right? Megan Murphy, PPC candidate from BC, her accounts are still frozen. You froze a political opponent's bank account. How is that having faith in a system that is supposed to be fair and democratic? It's supposed to follow our charter that the Liberals have gleefully violated. When they enacted the Emergencies Act to quell a peaceful protest and then use violence on them illegally as ruled by the courts, that kind of loss of faith in a system. Yeah. Overall, social immobility might lead some people to lose motivation to improve their prospects or to embrace radical ideas about restructuring society. Radical ideas. Yeah. Radical ideas like merit before communist liberals came along and destroyed society with their ideological narratives and diversity, equity, inclusion. That kind of restructuring, yeah, most people don't even pay attention to that stuff. They, they think it doesn't really affect them until they walk into a government men's room and see a tampon dispenser and wonder, oh yeah, that's still going on. Some may even lose faith in the Canadian project. Yeah, I lost faith in the Canadian project the moment you made me a second-class citizen as a serving veteran. Canada meant nothing to me. This means nothing to me now. I left my medals. I left my flag, my little box that I had that the guys made for me in the shop, my little shadow box. I left all back away. For what? Represent my service to a country that abandoned me, that ignored the fact that they were violating the ethics of the people, that put their lives before the country. Yeah, okay. Canadian project is a joke. It's a freaking joke. It's a freaking joke that'll arbitrarily unalive people for ideological reasons, and nobody cares. Especially liberal voters. Liberal voters are happy, very happy that liberals have unalived and injured so many people with their jibby jab. Virtue signaling. You did the right thing for the rest of us. You kept us safe. Yeah. I didn't keep you safe, by the way. I didn't take it. Yeah. No adverse events for me. Other people might reject consumption and focus on activities that promote human flourishing, providing their basic needs are fulfilled. Other people might reject consumption and focus on activities promoting human flourishing. I have no idea what they're trying to say here. Declining social mobility could create serious challenges for citizens and policymakers. What people believe matters as much as the reality. It is often the basis for decisions and actions. Currently, most Canadians still believe that they have equality of opportunity. This may change. What do you mean it may change? It has already changed. It changed the minute that you made it impossible for people who didn't get the jibby jab to get employment. Remember that? Remember that? Oh, and by the way, you still have a three jibby jab requirement to join the Canadian Armed Forces. So there is no equal opportunity, especially also in a system that uses DEI, diversity, equity, inclusion, to promote equity, which means that some people will be more equal than others and put into positions not based on merit. So why would Canadians still believe that they have equal opportunity in a system that the Liberals have already put in that doesn't have equal opportunity? People may lose faith in the Canadian project. Already answered. They may reject policies that promote education, jobs, or home ownership. Well, you show me one policy that promotes education, jobs, and home ownership that the Liberals have, and then that would probably apply. But every single policy has been the opposite. The usual levers may seem misguided and wasteful to those who have abandoned the idea of moving up. Why would someone move up in a dystopian society? You wouldn't be able to unless you're part of that class, that upper class that the Liberals have created in Canada. Those that are more equal than others, those that get a direct subsidy from the government, those that get direct financing from the government, you know, like the CBC and all the other media that's spouting lies and disinformation and election interference continually, instead of objectively reporting on the election, is continuing to spread misinformation about anyone else than Liberals. And the media, the mainstream media has not even covered that PPC candidate having had their funding frozen by the Liberal government to keep political opponent from running. Complete, complete douchebaggery, as they like to say. But the loss of belief in social mobility could also make space for positive ideas. Oh, yes, the positive idea first comes to mind is getting the hell out of Dodge and moving out of Ontario if the Liberals win and moving to Alberta, because Alberta's going to leave, so I might as well be in a good spot. They may reject conspicuous consumption. They may focus on policies that promote human flourishing. This could include healthcare, housing, environment, and education for its own sake. Upward mobility may never be as difficult or rare as suggested in this scenario. However, social stagnation and downward mobility are plausible elements of the future. I don't know why they're saying plausible for the future when it has already happened, when it has already been instituted against those who refuse to get COVIDity stupidity injection. They've already done it once, and their policies continue to migrate that way. You can see it on how they completely demonize anything that doesn't follow the liberal ideology. They have no respect for anyone but their own selves. However, social stagnation, eh? So exploring them supports anti anticipatory governance by helping policy think through potential challenges and opportunities. I I'm aghast. So I knew that things would probably break down in society with the liberals in place. And the other reason why I put in that garden, because I knew the economy would get stupid expensive, and it did. So now most of my food comes from my own garden. But this is this future that we have right now, if the liberals win, is not a future for Canada. Canada will just dismember itself. It will break apart. But really, I think what most people don't understand is that even if the Conservatives win this coming election, we're still going to go through a couple of years of really hard times because of how screwed up the economy has been made by the Liberals. So there might be a bit of subsistence living happening regardless. And I know my garden for the next 2 years, if the Conservatives win, will help keep me fed. But if the Liberals win, the next person buys this house, if anybody buys this house, because like why the hell would they buy a house in a country run by half-wits like liberals? They'll have a nice garden, and I'm gonna have another life in a place that respects humans, and it respects charter rights, respects human rights, really, and respects life and individualism and the right to freedom of speech and the right to decide our own fate. Because the liberals only have one thing in mind: control. Control so they could fill their pockets, just like they've done for the last 10 years. This has been Occam's Razor. Thanks for hanging out to the end. Talk to you later.